So excited that you're joining us, hopefully from your lunch break or if your day off. We're excited that you are with us today. Or if you're watching this later on, we're still excited that you have decided to click on this video and hear about social justice, which is our topic for today. So happy Thursday. Thursdays are always very interesting because it's not yet Friday, but you're sort of ready to wrap up the week. We have an amazing, phenomenal guest with us today, Sherrell Byrd, and she is my emerged sister. And so I am so honored to be able to chat with her and to talk to you all about civic engagement and social justice. So don't go anywhere. Stay right there. We're going to dig deeper into this topic. She is one of the experts out in the lovely Georgia area, and she'll be talking about her work and the importance of us being civically engaged. If you are watching this from Facebook, we want you to share this out so that others can get this message as well. If you're watching on LinkedIn, we want you to like and follow us on both iRace Inc. and Shaniqua E. Moore page. And if you are watching through YouTube, don't forget to subscribe so you can get updates on our latest videos. And tomorrow, which is January 27th, we are releasing episode 8 of the ATL Rise podcast. We're featuring First Lady Jacqueline Adams, entitled The Love of a Mother. So don't miss that episode. You can download it on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. All right, let's jump in. I'm ready to chat with you, Sherrell. It's so good to have you. Thank you so much. It's been such a journey getting you on, but now that you're here, we're really excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation. It's so good to see you again and have a chance to just chat.
Absolutely. Charlotte is just one of those people that when you meet her, she's very kind-hearted and very sweet and has such a powerful story and may be able to touch on some of the parts of her story today. But I admire you, Cheryl. You are such a
Thank you.
trailblazer and trendsetter, and you've been doing amazing work out in Albany, Georgia, correct?
That's correct.
All right. We got to get her in studio, y'all, for our podcast. So we're going to work that out too. Well, for those who don't know Cheryl, I want to formally introduce her. Her last name is Byrd, so Sherrell Byrd, co-founder and co-chair of SOWEGA Rising, which is a coalition that activates activism, organizes organizations, and moves movements forward. She's the founder of the Southwest Georgia Black Chamber, which is an organization that supports, educates, and provides network opportunities for African American businesses in Southwest Georgia. And she's also the CEO of Lady Bird Events Enterprises LLC, which encompasses the BAM agency and Lady Bird event design. She does it all, y'all. I'm astounded by your work. And she uses her expertise in small business ownership, marketing, nonprofit management, and communications to assist businesses with creating a professional brand and image. She also specializes in disaster communications, helping rural communities navigate communication lines during times of crisis and natural disasters. She lends her knowledge and expertise on a number of boards. I may not be able to go through all of them, but some of them include the City of Albany Community and Economic Development, the Voices for Health, the Empower Health Community Advisory Council, and I'll name another one, the Advisory Board for the Department of Teacher Education at Albany State University. She's also a graduate at Westover High School and Georgia State University, and she currently resides in her hometown of Albany, Georgia, a proud mother of her two daughters, Shalise. Is it Shalise and Sheldon, daughter and son? Cheryl, did I get that? Or two
That's
daughters?
correct. Son and daughter,
Daughter and
yes.
son. I love it. I'm telling you, us moms, we make the best advocates. And she has two fur babies that I would love to meet, Leroy Brown and the cat Jazzy, the dog. I love it. I love that so much. Well, Cheryl, again, it's a pleasure. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about having this conversation today.
Yeah, so I know what we like when we first met, we really just kicked it off and we were talking about your story, being two Black women that run nonprofit organizations. We are up against very unique challenges. But I was wondering if you can tell your story of how you got into this work. What sort of inspired you? How did you get here?
Yeah, it's a long road to getting here. I really did started community organizing. Actually, when I lived in Atlanta after I graduated from Georgia State, I didn't know at the time it was community organizing. I just
Hmm.
knew my aunt was passionate about making sure that there was no gentrification in her
Right.
neighborhood. She lived in we all lived in the village of Stone Mountain, like right after graduation, and there was a little town called Shermantown there, and there was a threat that property values were about to increase. These are people that had been living in that community. It was like very generational. They've been living there since really since Sherman ran through Atlanta. That's how they got the name. And we went to the communities and talked to them about, this is happening. They're going to increase your property values, which means it may be harder for you to pay your taxes, and that could possibly mean you losing your homes. And these people were not having it. They were like, we don't want to hear that. We don't know you all. You're coming to our communities telling us this stuff. But I really learned some valuable lessons very early on about toxic charity and how to do this right. And so I had a whole career in like event planning, marketing, fund development, and then
Mhm.
circled back to this world of community organizing, like right around 2016, 17, when we were in the wake of, Trayvon Martin being murdered. And then it was like this rash of additional murders, Michael Brown, Freddie Gray, then it became this whole kind of, hashtag movement, and just really seeing these things on social media, like in your face, being inundated with it. And it really put me into just a helpless state. I'm a mom of a son. And so I
Right.
really felt helpless. And I was like, what can I do? Like, what can I do to make sure, that we don't have a community where this could happen to my son.
Right.
And that's kind of what jolted me into doing this work. Met an amazing organizer by the name of Amna Faruqi, who at the time was working for 9 to 5 Georgia. She was hosting organizing trainings in our community. And so I went to one, Organizing 101, and was like blown away with like, this is actually a whole thing called organizing, and you can actually get into your community and you can make your community better. Like, you don't have to sit on the sidelines. Like, you don't need permission to lead in your community. You can get out and get it done. So she taught the principles, gave us kind of the tools. Um, she and I became like really fast and close friends. And then we together started working with other organizers and people in the community, and decided, you know what, let's work together and create this organization called SOWEGA Rising, where we can do this work in a very real and structured way. And so, yeah, that led me to where I am today.
I love that story. But you mentioned something, and I think I heard you correctly, but I think I heard you say toxic charity. Is that what you can you talk a little
Yes.
bit about what that is, what that means?
Yeah, toxic charity is a term that was coined by Robert Lupton. He actually runs the Lupton Center in Atlanta. He's amazing. If you've never had a chance to attend one of their workshops, I highly recommend it. It changed my life. Because we tend to think a lot of times that, we have the answers for a community. And so you see a lot of organizations come into communities, and they kind of jump down into that community for a specific period of time and say, we know what you need. You need this thing. We're going to give
Right.
it to you. A lot of times that's in the form of food drives, coat drives. They may come and do a neighborhood cleanup. They'll swoop in, clean up the neighborhood, swoop back out again. But what
Right.
they don't understand a lot of times is, one, that tends to be driven by a savior complex.
Yeah.
We want to come in and save the day because we
Mhm.
know these people are in dire straits and we need to save them. And that's the
Right.
absolute wrong way to approach a community. A
Mhm.
lot of times we do things that create a sense of entitlement, right? So we do, um, food drives, and we kind of herd people in a line, and we give them their food, and then we herd them back out again. And there's
Mhm.
really not human dignity in that. And then we also create kind of a sense of entitlement where people start to rely on these free offerings and these free programs instead of finding ways to give them sustainable tools to bring to have a better quality of life. And then I'll say finally, we don't take the time. A lot of training people in organizing. One of the first principles is before you assume what a community needs, just sit with that community, come down to their level, and say, "What do you need?" Just ask the question.
Right.
What is it that you need?
Right.
We know what we need for ourselves in our
Mhm.
communities. A lot of times people just don't ask. Excuse me. And
Yeah.
so toxic charity is just assuming what they need instead of
Right.
asking them what they needed and giving it to them.
Right. No, and I think that, and I know you're just, getting that thing out your throat happens to me so often, but the toxic charity, and I guess we call it different things, but it is something that is it's so oversaturated in communities of color. It's this, we like to call it changing a narrative also, because the assumed narrative is you're broken, we got to fix you, or you're broke down, we got to come and save you. When in reality, the reality is that communities of color, especially Black communities, were doing well outside of this savior and this help by themselves. If given the opportunity and the access to be able to thrive, they have done well in the past and continue to do well. But you talked about being able to come down to the community level, and I think that really is the simplified definition of what community organizing is, because you can't organize around something that you don't understand, and you can't organize in a community when you're not talking to them, right? And so I think what you mentioned is really, really important and very vital. And then if you want to expound a little bit on what sort of the formal definition of community organizing, because it's also it's a field of study. Many people go into studying community organizing, they graduate and they sort of go into this as a career. So can you talk to us a little bit about what is community organizing?
Yeah, definitely. So, community organizing is really empowering communities to create their own solutions and giving them the tools to do that. So, it's a bottom level approach. It's a kind of a bottom up approach to leadership and empowering that community to learn how to move power, first of all. Like, what are the ways in which we move power? Just giving a quick lesson on that is, there's two ways to move power, either money or people. And a lot of times we don't have a lot of money, but we can mobilize people. And so that's the first thing, is helping people understand like who are decision makers in your community that you can talk to get you what you need. And then teaching people strategy. Just kind of a rudimentary definition of strategy is understanding what you have and taking what you have and turning it into what you need to get what you want. And so teaching people exactly how to strategize around issues in their community, and then helping them power map who are the people that you talk to that can change this thing. That might be a legislator, that might be an organization, that might be a funder. But how do you leverage that power to be able to get what you need for your community? So that's it at its just kind of basic root. There's so many other strategies that can be applied to community organizing. And then we do quite a bit of movement building with that. And so showing people, how to move power, how to, if that means doing a rally, doing a protest, going to a city commission hearing and speaking at that hearing. What are ways that you can create movements in your own community?
What does it mean to move power for people that may have never heard of that term? What does that look like in sort of in a practical way, for people that are listening and may be interested in doing something like that?
People don't realize we do it all the time. All the time. Moving power is not this big sweeping action. Voting is moving power. When we go and exercise our right to vote collectively, we're all as people coming together to decide a referendum or a policy, to vote in someone that has committed to changing things in your community and making things better. That's power. That's movement. That's moving power. Um, people showing up to a city commission meeting to all speak on a certain issue to make sure that their voices are heard and that they're appealing to those legislators like this is what we want for our community. That's moving power. um, calling your state legislators. A lot of times we don't do that enough. Many of them say they get phone calls from corporations, but they're not getting phone calls from the average person. So making that phone call, sending an email, writing a letter to your legislator, telling them like this is what's happening in my community and we
Mhm.
need you to change it. We need to do more of that. So it's not, it just really takes time and being invested in your community and really being willing to just use your voice for change. Anyone can do it. You don't have to be a paid activist or advocate. You just have to be someone that's concerned about your community. And so I think that when people realize how easy it is, that you don't have to be the most well-spoken person, you don't have to be this trained organizer, you just have to show up. You just show up for your community.
I love
That's moving power.
I love that. I'm thinking about a gentleman from New York City, and I won't say his name because he probably wouldn't want me to say it. But there was a gentleman that would come to every board meeting, and sometimes he would say the same thing over and over, but he was so well respected for coming, for showing up, and even if he said the same thing every month for 10 years, he was heard because he showed up. And when people were saying, who are the community leaders? He was one of them because he showed up. And so you don't have to be, articulate of speech and learn how to say all these elaborate things. You just need to be there. You just need to show up. But I think there's another issue inside of that we're not really touching on, and that's people's lack of wanting to be involved because of many factors. But for those that are just not wanting to get involved in their community, but may have a genuine passion for empowering communities, or may actually have something to contribute, what would you say to those individuals, or how could we sort of activate them to get involved?
I've always told people like they just have to find what their niche is. Everyone's not going to march. Everyone's not going to
Right.
protest. Everyone's not going to go to their state legislator. And that's fine. Do anything, do something. If it means like I said earlier, cleaning up your community, if it means mentoring a child in your community, um, if it means just knocking on doors and reminding people to vote, all of that is necessary. All of that is necessary to power building. We all can play a small role in it. You just have to just get up and do it. So I encourage people, even if, like I say, voting, taking the census, doing those things that are our civic duty and right. That's your right to do it. We all can do it. And so, there's the saying that says never doubt what a small group of committed citizens can do, because that's all that's ever changed the world is just a small few.
Mhm.
Um, and so while that's great to hear, that small groups of people can change the world, imagine what the masses of us could do to change the world. And so I think that, just being able to just stand up and do something, like you said, is just important. And anybody can do it. And I think people get overwhelmed a lot of times, and people get helpless at times.
Yeah.
When they feel like things are never going to change. It's just always been this way, and we
Right.
hear that a lot. Like when we're knocking on doors, we get that a lot from people that my vote
Right.
doesn't matter. Those
Mhm.
politicians don't really care.
Right.
But if you don't vote, it gets worse, and so we
Yeah.
always have to explain that to people. Like your vote is the difference between things getting better and things getting a whole lot worse. Um,
Hmm.
you picking up trash in your neighborhood is the difference between you having a rundown community and a community that really looks like a quality community.
Right.
You mentoring a child can be the difference in that child becoming a criminal or being a victim to the system, or that
Right.
child becoming a successful career person or a successful person in your community. So it's like all of us can do something, but we just have to get up and do something.
I love that. And I love how Cheryl, you're just so skilled and really understanding that everyone plays a significant role in their community, but finding that role might be the challenge. whose responsibility, if any, do you believe it is to help people within their community find that connect to what it is that they want to do to support their community?
I just think it's our community. Like I say, one thing that really pulled me into this work is I remember a gentleman telling me that you don't need permission to lead. And this actually happened around
Right.
the time when our community we had like two straight line wind tornadoes that hit Albany
Mm.
within 2 weeks of each other. It just like really
Wow.
devastated our community. And this was back in 2017. And so I remember just being at home and just like wondering, what can I do?
Right.
How can I help? And I
Right.
called this was a local leader, and I called him. I was like, what can I do? They were trying to figure it out. They were like, we don't even quite know what to do. We're still wrapping our heads around this disaster.
Right.
So he was like, you don't need my permission to lead. Just go do something. Go
I love
help. And I did. I just got up and it was like, okay, we
that.
people are without power. Let's go find blankets and give blankets to people that are without power.
I
Oh,
love
okay.
that.
Well, people can't wash their clothes right now, so let's do a clothing drive and let's help people get clothes so that they won't have to worry about their clothes are dirty. And it snowballed from there to where it just became this bigger community effort. People were like, how can I participate?
Right.
What can I do? We mobilized restaurants in the community to
Mhm.
help linemen that were trying to get the power back on. We were like, well, these guys shouldn't have to worry about lunch, so let's make sure we get food for them so that they can, get our power back on quickly. So it was just little things that, it's like, just think of something. Any small thing can help, and it did. It helped our community recover, and it gave people an opportunity to all put their hands on deck and support our community during that difficult time. And that launched me into disaster relief, into disaster communications. And people started calling more like, hey, we remember Sherrell was helping with this, so let's get her
Yes.
to help where the hurricane hit. And the following year, I was very involved in disaster communication. I wasn't trained in any of that, but it was just they
Mm.
knew that I knew how to mobilize our community around disasters. So it just takes just starting small, seeing what you can do, and just helping. And eventually, the need will kind of direct you where you need to go.
I love that. The need will direct you. And I love that you put the onus back on the person, because that really is right. It's our responsibility to be able to stand up within our community and play that role. And what I love is that you were looking to the leader, and the leader put it back on you and said, you don't need permission. Go ahead and do it. You seen the need. It moved you. You were compelled. And so you have permission now to lead. And so the need will essentially tell you where to lead. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and a lot of times our leaders are just human, So when these disasters hit,
Absolutely.
sometimes they're just as shocked and traumatized, and they're trying to figure it out themselves.
Right.
So it's like
Right.
we have to have compassion and grace for our leaders at times too, that they
Right.
don't know and they need help too, and we can help. We can help. It's our community, so it takes all of like community is common unity. Like we all are
Love it.
united together in a community, and so it's our responsibility to take care of it.
I love it. A community is common unity. I love that. And your organization, can you tell us how you help to organize the communities, and what are some of the things that you provide? What type of services do you provide to individuals and communities?
Yeah, so SOWEGA Rising, we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan advocacy organization. So we are the town criers. We scream
Love
as
it.
loudly as we can to local, state, federal legislators about the issues that are impacting rural communities specifically. Like we're laser focused on Southwest Georgia. We center Black people, we center Black communities, we center rural communities in our work. And we really just like try to alleviate like the oppressive policies and things that have like kept people marginalized.
Yes.
So we have like 5 core initiatives that so we try to get through all of them. There's food justice, rural health, historic and cultural preservation, um, criminal justice reform and public safety, civic engagement, which is a big bucket of what we do, climate and energy justice, racial equity, and I feel like I've forgotten one of them. So that's kind of how the buckets in which we do our work. Um, Civic engagement is probably our largest bucket where we engage people the most. And that's where we do like public facing actions. We've done protests, we've done marches. We have a very like robust voter education and GOTV mobilization. So during election season, we are everywhere, knocking on doors, phone calls, texting people.
I love
Um,
it.
Doing everything to just show people ways in which they can engage and change their communities.
Wow. And what would it look like if someone from Southwest Georgia was interested in having your organization come in to help out in one of those pillar areas? What would that look like?
Yeah, just give us a call or email us. They can always email us at sowegarising@gmail.com. We do organizing trainings to show people how to
Amazing.
organize in their communities. We do work with grassroots organizations that are trying to build their capacity, and we show them how to do that, and we help them, help them source funding so that they can do more work in their communities. And we definitely show people how to use their voices. We give platforms to people, we do webinars and trainings, but also we do things like we show up to the Capitol, we show up to commission meetings, and we show people how to structure what they want. A lot of times people just don't know how to articulate what they want, and we show them how to do that. So those are a few of the ways. Just reach out to us. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and or they can email us, and we look forward to helping people just improve the quality of life of Southwest Georgia. That's what we do.
I love it. And if people are watching this and they're wondering how to contact their local elected official, some people may not even know what district they're in, or how to even reach their elected official, who their elected official is. What advice would you give to those individuals?
Yeah, if they're internet savvy, I would say, my voter page here in the state of
Mhm.
Georgia,
Right.
or Ballotpedia. Ballotpedia is one of my favorites that just kind of tells everything you want to know about your legislator. It even tells like how they voted. It gives
Mhm.
their background. It talks about how much money they've raised. It talks about who's giving them money. So Ballotpedia is amazing. So I would definitely suggest like researching that. I'm glad you brought that up because districts have changed in the state of Georgia. And so it's
Mhm.
important right now for people to find out who their legislators are, if their district lines have changed, so that
Right.
you know how to vote in upcoming elections. So, yeah, that's really great for people you should always know who your legislators are and just show up, Don't wait until election season. A lot of times we don't engage with our legislators until election season when they knock on our doors, but our jobs as people in this political space is to show up after the vote and hold them accountable to what they promised you. So yeah, if we can't always make it to the state capitol, you can call them. They're just a phone call away. So give them a call, send them an email, write a letter if you have to, but let them know you're watching, you're holding them accountable.
I love that. That's really important, and I think that's all excellent advice, and especially on the voting part, as I think that that's a huge piece in this, and you mentioned it a number of times, and I appreciate your organization for hosting a robust voter education initiative and all the things that you're doing to educate people on the importance of being civically engaged and voting and getting out there and knowing that your vote it is the difference between whether things are better or they get worse. Because a lot of times people feel so insignificant and don't feel like their vote is really going to make a difference. When in reality, it does. It really does. And there is so much power in it. But I think one of the things we mentioned as we're closing is so many communities of color have been disempowered, and many of them are lacking trust in leadership. And so I know that one of your initiatives is really to restore that back and to allow people to understand that they do hold power, and how to utilize that power. So I think it's recognizing the power that they hold and then teaching them how to take that power and utilize it to change things in their communities.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest tools of white supremacy is to tell Black communities that they don't have power.
Mm,
Um, And when we start to believe that, when we let that get into our heads, then they've won. We are so powerful. And we've had movements, historic movements that have shown that when we
absolutely.
come together, we are
True.
so powerful and so mighty, and we have changed the world. And so we
That's
can never forget that. We can never forget how powerful our voices are when we're united. So I would say, yeah, don't let them win. Don't ever let white supremacy win and convince you that you have no power, when in fact you are one of the most, we're some of the most powerful people on this planet.
the most and most resilient. And the Black woman vote, okay, we are the ones that are the most civically engaged. And so I really appreciate you and all your work and what you're doing. And last thing I'll mention is in the voting, don't just vote in presidential elections. Most of us are just vote in your local elections, your local county elections, your the state, your city council, your special elections. Know what's going on in your community, please. And if you have a board that is in your local community, show up on the board, or if you're interested, maybe even try to serve on that board. That's another way to get involved. So don't just be silent. Don't just be on the sidelines complaining about how bad things are. If you're noticing and if you're seeing something, do something. That's going to be the new one. If you see something, do something. If you see something, do something about it and be a part of what you want to see change in your community. Cheryl, any last words, advice that you like to give those who are watching?
Yeah, I would just say again, you don't need permission to lead. I think all of us have leadership potential. We just need the right moment and time to bring it out of us. We've had moments, and maybe that wasn't your moment, but
Wow,
I think because people step up, that's what changes the world. That's what makes things better. And so, yeah, just do something, find something, and plug in.
I love it. Recognize your moment. Well, that is Cheryl. How can people reach you if they're interested? Are you? I know you're focused in on Southwest Atlanta, Southwest Georgia, excuse me. But if there are people outside of that area, are you open to going into those communities and working with them, or is that case by case basis?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're here in Southwest Georgia. Most of our focus is here, but we're open to helping anyone that wants to utilize their voice. We're typically all over the state working with partners and organizations all over. So just reach out. We're again on Facebook. You can find us on Facebook, or you can email us SOWEGARising@gmail.com. So we'd love to hear from you. And
Amazing.
thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you, and thank you for being here with us and for sharing this space with me. It's very enlightening, and it's great hearing all your work. I didn't know the depthness of what you do, but now that I know that you're out there doing so much more than civic engagement, we got to talk more about that and partner together better to help our communities of color. And that is how you can reach out to Sherrell. SOWEGA Rising is the organization, and in her the Gmail is right there. So go ahead, excuse me, not her Gmail, her tag on social media. So please go ahead and follow her work. And if you're in the Georgia area, if you're in Albany, Georgia, and you're interested in plugging in and getting connected to her organization, please do reach out. She's doing great work. And she might be doing some other stuff in the near future. I'll let her talk about that another time. So thank you all for watching and for supporting today's fireside chat. Remember to be civically engaged no matter what state or city you are in. You hold the power and don't forget that. Don't let no one tell you differently because you are powerful and really who you are in your community, and you don't need permission. So you don't need to you can call your local elected officials, but you don't have to call them to get permission. You can lead where you are. If you see a need, plug in and lead. Again, thank you. We appreciate all of you for supporting our content and for following us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Facebook page as well, and also our ATL Rise podcast. Again, tomorrow we'll be releasing episode 8, and you don't want to miss that. That's actually one of my favorites. We're talking all things mothers, the mother's touch, a mother's love, and how important it is for mothers to be integrated and involved in education and in society and raising our children. So we love you. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Until then, stay safe. Thanks, Cheryl, for joining us.